Hi, I'm Cedar, and you are listening to The Talk Show. Dear listeners, I have a question for you today. When was the last time you watched a movie, and was that in the cinema? Recently, a lot of widely anticipated movies came out, from familiar faces like Toy Story 5, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Christopher Nolan's latest work, The Odyssey, and also smash hits like The Obsession and Backroom from up-and-coming directors. This summer comes packed with an abundance of blockbuster movies that is sure to make your money's worth. And whether you've seen them or not, your friends and family might have already done so and shared their experience on social media. Or you might have been spending your time this summer watching movies on streaming platforms. You might have already gotten yourself a job and couldn't find the time to make it to your local cinema. Or maybe you just find it more convenient to watch movies at home at your own comfort. Or maybe you just aren't interested enough in any of the latest release that I've mentioned and just want to do something else. Other than that, there are also more content options on, let's say, Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, like drama series and interactive films that you might enjoy more. But that's something for another day. At the time of this recording, widely appraised movies released in 2026 like Pixar's Hoppers, Project Hail Mary, and many more are already available for streaming, either through subscription, renting, or buying them digitally. With that said, there might be more movies that can pique your interest online than in the cinema, not to mention other more niche and non-Western produced movies out there available for us to consume. Is it possible for us to link these facts with the modern decline of the cinema? At the end of October 2022, when I just arrived in Cardiff, the local movie theatre Premier Cinema ended its operation unexpectedly after less than a decade. And despite having freebies at the Freshers' Fair, I never got a chance to visit. We could say that it's due to the lack of attendance during and shortly after COVID. However, more recently, Cardiff's View Cinema also announced its closure after more than 20 years of operation at the heart of the city. Well, other than leases running out, the pandemic may no longer be a strong justification for cinema closing worldwide. Therefore, from the consumer's perspective, what do they think about this? Fandango released a report earlier this year analyzing the general public's cinema-going behavior. And by comparing data from multiple age demographics collected in 2025, Gen Z audiences were found to be the most active cinema goers, while older generations display weaker frequencies. However, from my own perspective, very few of my friends who are Gen Zs have actually expressed strong enthusiasm for the cinematic experience. And even for me, as someone who loves going to the cinema, it can also be hard to find the time to do so as a student, not to also mention for those who are currently working. Using this context as the starting point, we are going to talk about how Gen Z movie audiences understand and evaluate contemporary film consumption in the midst of this strong shift to digitalization. What gratifications do they seek from watching movies, and what do they look for in going to the cinema and using streaming platforms? So, I have decided to do some reading and started a research by designing a quantitative survey to investigate the issue at hand. By sharing the survey with the people around me, I was able to collect 89 responses, adequate for the smaller scale of this research. They have all identified themselves as part of the Gen Z demographic, and they come from different parts of the world, from those living here in Cardiff to those outside the UK. One of the first things this study has found is that Gen Z movie audience do in fact exhibit a higher frequency of streaming platform activities. Most of them have watched more movies online in the past year than in the cinema, and only less than a quarter of respondents have been to the cinema for 8 or more times a year. That is like going to the cinema once every 6 weeks or so. In contrast, more than 70% have gone to the cinema at least once in the past 60 days, which shows that despite Gen Z's general preference for streaming platforms, they are still going to the cinema, especially during this summer's blockbuster season. You might be wondering, why do Gen Z watch movies and what do they do this for? Well, this study has shown a majority of them saying that they see this as an opportunity to spend time with friends and family. Movie consumption, especially in the cinema, has always been characterized as a social activity. But nowadays, this social function can happen outside the cinema and within the confines of your own home, which the data also tells us that Gen Z audiences do not appreciate the cinema's collective viewing environment as much as before, while they place the privacy they get from using streaming platform as the least important motivational factor. For cinema, perhaps it is due to the lack of control that Gen Z has over their fellow audience, especially those who might not be as respectful and might make their dates or social gatherings less pleasant. Or they simply enjoy movie better in a quieter, less crowded screening hall. Whereas for streaming movies, it is possible that they prefer having their friends over for a movie night, or young adults still regularly host online watch parties, which was a trend during the pandemic days, where Gen Z audience would use Discord or telepathy to watch movies together with friends without being in the same space. The next thing Gen Z audiences enjoy the most are the hedonic and eudaimonic gratifications from movie consumption. They show an identical amount of appreciation towards movies from which they can experience positive emotions like joy, thrill, and excitement, as well as movies that inspire them cognitively, help them self-reflect, and learn something new. Other than that, most of them also agree that they tend to watch movies with great visual effects, sound design, and storytelling. These aspects of a film can be connected to the fact that more heavy cinema goers who rank the cinema technological features, which include the screen size and sound system, as the most important motivational factor. On the other hand, we can also say that since the majority stream movies regularly, the emphasis on these aspects also meant that Gen Z have indeed grown accustomed to watching movies on smaller screens, while also appreciating the cinema's role in enhancing the overall experience. Additionally, these factors that I've mentioned rely heavily on the movie they watch, and they are also connected to the utmost importance Gen Z audience have placed on the types and amount of content, both in the context of their cinematic experience and by using streaming platforms. In contrast, although most Gen Z audiences still value the escapism movie consumption offers, most of them do not think that it is worth putting in the extra effort. In the cinematic experiences case, they might feel like movie tickets are not as affordable and do not want to risk watching a movie that they do not enjoy, which is in line with affordability being the most important motivational factor for them to go to the cinema. However, Gen Z audiences have voted accessibility as the less important factor for their cinema-going behavior, such as the geographical proximity and how accessible cinemas are for their communities. We can say that this shows that they are still willing to travel to cinema, perhaps for the social, hedonic, and eudaimonic gratifications they get from watching movies, and they might be able to engage in other activities before and after the screening, but not exclusively for the escapism gratification it offers. For streaming, with convenience and control being among the more important factors, Gen Z might prioritize integrating watching movies into their daily lives without making it a special enough activity that's worth the time to sit down, relax, and just throw everything away for a little bit. For example, people are seen watching movies on the way to work while on their phone, while also doing chores at home, and even in the gym when they're working out. So, what are the takeaways for the cinema operators, streaming services, and most importantly, movie studios to get from this result? Overall, the quantitative data and the results have shown that Gen Z audiences nowadays do show a preference for streaming platform, mostly due to its convenience, flexibility, and the access to numerous content at their fingertips. Other than that, the in-home viewing environment has also been shaped and altered in favor of streaming technology to provide enhanced satisfaction. People no longer have to wait for TV broadcasts or have to have a DVD player with the TV to play movies. Instead, not only do they get access to movies from their smartphone, tablets, and laptops, but they can also watch movies together with others, either traditionally by having an in-person movie night or digitally by hosting an online watch party. On the other hand, the availability of streaming services has also led many to see more value in the cinematic experience. Getting offline and having physical social engagement are part of the experience that contemporary audiences still look for, especially Gen Z who wants more social gatherings after missing nearly 3 full years of it during the pandemic. Moreover, research has also shown that the cinematic experience is still superior in enhancing one's gratification, particularly with the large screens and better sound system, and marketing for most blockbusters nowadays encourage audiences to go to the cinema and watch movies in premium formats like IMAX and 4DX to get the full experience. In addition, streaming platforms also benefit from cinema attendance, as this study, along with previous literature, have established that those who go to the cinema more often also tend to watch more content online. Perhaps this is a sign that cinema operators should rethink their strategy as a movie distribution venue. Over the years, cinemas have become less about cultivating social belonging and a sense of community, but more about marketing and movie consumption. Therefore, cinema can consider including more social space outside the screening halls, such as a small bar where viewers can have a drink and chat before the movies, and they can also collab with other restaurants and gaming arcades nearby to offer promotional deals so audience can go and have more social activities. Other than that, to make the experience more affordable for Gen Z audiences, existing student discounts and saver options should be advertised more widely, which may work in favor of getting more attendance. The type and amount of content available in the cinema is also important, but this relies not only on cinema operators but also on movie studios, especially those that releases their critically acclaimed movies exclusively online, such as Netflix Frankenstein and the third installment in the Knives Out franchise, which only had limited regional cinematic release. Fans of beloved films might like to revisit old movies or watch them for the first time in the cinema, as streaming movies is still an experience distinct from the cinematic experience. Cinema operators and studios should maintain the quality of services provided along the premium screenings, or they can consider increasing the time slots or extending the period scheduled for this premium experience. This can ensure that audiences still have a chance to watch it after the cinema has become less crowded. For streaming platforms, While maintaining the accessibility and flexibility viewers enjoy, they can implement more measures to increase the sociality of the streaming experience. For example, other than the normal rating system, these services can implement a comment section like Mubi, force viewers to leave comments and have discussions on the website. This could help develop a dedicated fan base for the platform and increase social engagement. As a fellow Gen Z, I am not immune to the effect streaming services has on me. Nevertheless, I still love going to the cinema, and both medium have expanded my taste in movies and allow me to explore more. On a more optimistic note, lately, I have seen a lot of more people my age going to the cinema. So maybe this is a sign that cinema is still alive and well, and at least for now, streaming platforms have not completely substituted the cinematic experience for Gen Z audiences. That's all for today, and I hope to see you at the movies.